time here and we have a lot to go over. So should we get started? All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of our Renewable Heat Now campaign. Our agenda tonight is just a brief overview of Renewable Heat Now, the events that we've had since the last Power Hour last month, bill package updates, what passed, what didn't, and why. And then we're going to do some breakouts with the lobby teams to reflect a bit, and then we'll wrap up. So got a lot to cover, but we'll be as efficient as possible and wrap up by 8 o'clock. So Renewable Heat Now, for those of you who don't know, some of this is your first time with a Power Hour. We're a campaign to get fossil fuels out of buildings in New York as quickly and as equitably as possible, advocating for heat pumps, ground source, aka geothermal, and air source heat pumps. And we've been together now for over 5 years, hard to believe, but things have been, going like gangbusters with all of your help, and excited to keep building this campaign beyond this session. Next slide. So why are we working to electrify buildings and promote policies to accelerate the transition to heat pumps? Well, some very important reasons. Climate, of course. Buildings are New York's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. Health. New York, unfortunately, leads the nation in premature deaths caused by burning fossil fuels indoors, and exacerbates and causes childhood asthma, and other, major health impacts. Affordability. We know that fossil fuel prices are spiking. Some really scary projections for the future there. And then, of course, jobs. Electrifying and weatherizing our buildings will create 140,000 to 152,000 jobs by 2030, which is really incredible and exciting. And we, of course, want those to be good jobs, green jobs, and excited to work with folks across the state to make that happen. Next slide. So since we last met, we've had a ton happen. We had a rollout of our email tool to legislators, sending lots of emails to our legislators about our bill package. The gas-free NYC lobby day in Albany happened, which was great. That was like the first time I was in Albany since before the pandemic, and it was so wonderful to see people. We had an assembly hearing on the All-Electric Building Act, which was incredibly well attended, and Anne's going to talk about that, I believe, a little bit later. We had, of course, our RHN Day of Action on May 19th, which was awesome, and people rallied and had press events all across the state. And then we had our week of lobbying with social media and phone actions, and then the session ended. And so we did a ton in the past month, and, thanks everybody so much for your hard work and all of the time and energy that you put into this. Really appreciate it. And now here we are, forging ahead. So yes, I think I'm passing this off now to Jessica Aguilé from Agree.
That is true.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Aguilé from Alliance for a Green Economy. I use she or they pronouns. And as Betta said, the last month was incredibly busy, and so many of you participated. And we wanted to just highlight a few things that happened. So the Assembly held a hearing on the all electric buildings and on the All Electric Building Act. And we had so many people register to speak, so many experts. It was an incredible effort to get experts there. And we heard a lot of misconceptions and misinformation spewed at that hearing, but we also had wonderful experts from our side, just really correcting the record and making a very strong case for all electric buildings and debunking the fossil fuel industry talking points. So thank you to everyone who participated, who got experts to come and speak at that hearing, who came and spoke at that hearing, and who helped to elevate the points that were made at the hearing on social media. Next slide. And also wanted to highlight the Renewable Heat Now statewide day of action that happened in cities all over the state, from Rochester to Long Island, also Syracuse, Tarrytown, Southern Tier, Brooklyn, and there was also a letter delivery in Binghamton. And there were, press conferences and rallies all over the state. And it was really a great effort. So thank you to everyone who helped organize in your own community to make this happen, and who came out. And I will go to the next slide. And so, throughout the session, we just wanted to celebrate and thank all of you who participated in this effort. I think we held over 100 lobby meetings throughout the session, mostly driven by our regional lobby teams, as well as a lot of coordination from Anne Rabe at NYPIRG. So big thank you to Anne. There were multiple press conferences and rallies. We sent hundreds of emails and tweets and hundreds of phone calls, and got dozens of media hits about our agenda. And I'm just going to open it up real quick to Anne to talk a little bit about what happened in the final momentous days of session, and all of the effort that everyone made to try to push, particularly the All Electric Building Act, over the finish line.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. It was a really incredible, incredible, vibrant campaign for the All Electric Building Act. The hundreds of calls and emails, the last 2 weeks of session the last 2 days of session resulted in all of you and many other activists filling up the voicemail box of the Senate Majority Leader's Chief of Staff and Counsel, not once, but twice, which I don't ever remember happening before. So it was extremely effective. And, we, as Jessica mentioned, we had the assembly hearing and the caucus, Black and Puerto Rican Asian American caucus webinar with some fantastic speakers. We had a May 27th statewide news conference with 2 Climate Action Council members. In the last 2 days of session, we had a tweet from Peter Iwanowitz, a leader, prominent citizen Climate Action Council member, calling for the bill to be passed, and that was retweeted by Bill McKibben. So just incredible grassroots campaign. I can't thank everyone enough. You really did a stellar job, and we were the top priority bill in both the Senate and the Assembly until the very end of session. We didn't make it, but we'll get there.
Thank you, Anne. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Betta to talk about, now that we talked about all the things we did to try to get our bills over the finish line, I'm going to hand it back to Betta to talk about what we actually got.
Yeah, so big accomplishments here with the geothermal tax credit. So awesome job there. That was a big win. We also got the Advanced Building Appliance and Equipment Efficiency Standards Act over the finish line, finally, so yay. But 2 of our important bills in our legislative platform we did not pass. So lots more work to do. The All Electric Building Act and the Gas Transition and Affordable Energy Act still need to move forward next session. So we're going to hear more about that. But 2 out of 4 ain't bad. So thank you and congratulations everyone on these big wins. And so I just wanted to explain a little bit more about the Advanced Building Codes Appliance and Equipment Efficiency Standards Act. Not going to miss saying that one. So this was a bill that some people were working on for the past 5 years. I was working on it for the last few, and it's been a Renewable Heat Now priority for at least the past couple of years. And, it was originally sponsored by Senator Parker and Assemblywoman Fahey. And the goal of this legislation is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the building sector, enact stronger appliance and energy efficiency standards, and really align our building codes with the CLCPA, our Climate Act. And so on the appliance side, some really big numbers that I wanted to share are that, through this one piece of legislation, we will end up saving the equivalent to the annual emissions of more than 3.5 million cars, which is really astounding. And the amount of energy it takes to heat and power 150,000 homes in a year, which is the same amount of electricity that was used, more than the amount of electricity that was used by the entire state of New York in 2020. So that's a lot. And also not a small thing. It will save New Yorkers $15 billion on their utility bills by 2035 at a time when so many people are really struggling to pay their energy bills. So this is, a huge step forward, and it's really going to pave the way for us to have an all-electric building code, through a future code cycle. So it's getting rid of some of the obstacles that were in our way to doing that, and is just, a tremendous step towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in the building sector, and implementing our Climate Act. And with the appliances, 11 other states already had this on the books. These appliances are out there. They're TVs, they're computers, they're printers, they're things we use every day that now are going to be, phased out for more energy efficient appliances that we'll be able to buy at stores and have those savings both on our energy bills and our greenhouse gas emissions without even trying. So it's really, really important, and just want to thank everybody for, making the calls and including this in your meetings. I know it's a little bit, wonky getting into how the codes process works. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, to be honest. The building codes process is very complicated, but this is going to enable us to implement our climate law and get that, all electric code. So it's very exciting, and just, thank you and congratulations. And now I think I'm passing this off to Jessica again.
Almost. You're passing it off to Anne this time.
Okay, Anne, sorry, yes. Anne, the queen bee of the All Electric Buildings Act, who we're working literally round the clock for the last, few weeks of the session. Anne, you are a rock star. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Betta. So guys, the All Electric Buildings Act progressed tremendously this session, but did not pass yet. And I just want to put it in perspective. My understanding is the New York City All Electric Building Act took 11 months to pass New York City Council, become city law. We, from January to June, 5 months, got it to be seriously considered as an end of session priority by both the Senate and the Assembly, leadership and majority members. And in March, the governor and Senate supported its conclusion in the budget. The Assembly, unfortunately, did not. We were, an uphill battle because we were, as many of you know, we were facing a huge misinformation campaign by National Grid, their labor unions, and other fossil fuel industry companies. And we countered it with educational campaign, Mythbusters, incredible memos and messaging by many of you, showing that heat pumps work well in the cold climate. The grid is totally adequate through 2031. And the buildings of new electric homes is actually cheaper, according to the Long Island Power Authority and the New Buildings Institute's 2022 report, than building a gas-fueled home. So we made a lot of headway. We got 221 organizations, national, state, and regional, 3 prominent Climate Action Council members support, and those 221 groups were very, very active. I want to include in that, not only a shout out to the fantastic Renewable Heat Now lobby teams and Renewable Heat Now activists who did a tremendous job in those 100 legislative meetings, emails and phone calls. But also, we expanded to include many activists and groups from the Climate Can't Wait network, 350 Brooklyn, 350 Rockland, 350 New York City, I think, Climate Reality Project, the Forest Hills Green Team, many, many others. And so I just want to give a big shout out because it was a wonderful, very impressive grassroots effort. So our debrief is coming up soon. I'm sorry, we also got 57 Assembly co-sponsors and 21 Senate co-sponsors, which is very substantial for a bill that unfortunately due to misinformation was considered controversial by some legislators. So our summer and fall actions, we're proposing to have very soon a debrief Zoom, what went well and what can we improve on. And Anshul, thanks to Angel Gupta, we have a Google Doc where he's been dumping in emails with people's great ideas. Please continue. I'll send that out tomorrow, that Google Doc link again, but please continue to do that. So at the debrief, when we look at what went well, what can we improve, we're also going to be assessing our AEBA bank account, all the supporting groups, the resources we have, which are tremendous, our successful strategies, and sort of take stock. And then we're proposing some webinars, the ins and outs of legislative lobbying, some role playing with legislators and governor staff meetings, messaging and media tips, possibly more if people have recommendations. And then soon thereafter, or during that, concurrently, we'll having Zoom meetings to develop a strategy plan. Now we want to discuss with Renewable Heat Now groups, as well as the gas-free organizations and the Climate Can't Wait groups that are interested. Yes, and Jessica's pointed out in the chat, there's a lengthy list of those 221 groups that supported and worked on this campaign. The latest additions were the New York State Council of Churches, which is fantastic. The faith-based community got really involved, thanks to Roger Cook and many others on the Western New York Interfaith Community group, and also the New York State Veterans Council, many, many diverse national, state, and regional groups. So in terms of developing a strategy plan, here's the two proposed goals to consider. One is the governor has said already that she's considering holding what's called a special session for the legislature. Now, our goal is to push her to do that. Thank you, Sarah. Western New York Interfaith Climate Justice Community. Thank you. We're going to be pushing the governor. This is a proposal to push the governor to hold that special session. Only she can call the legislature back to town. Now, typically in an election year, especially, the governor calls the legislature back to town after Election Day in mid-November to the first week of December. And it's a 1 to 3 day legislative special session. And basically only bills that are wired to pass get on that special session agenda. So our job is to convince the governor to hold that, to call for it, and to convince the Assembly and Senate to put this bill on the special session agenda. So that basically means we got to start advocating in July, if not sooner. And then the second idea in terms of proposed goal, and this is an insurance policy, it's concurrent, is the governor to include the bill in her proposed executive budget. She and her staff start looking at what goes in the proposed executive budget in August. And typically they make their draft final decision by mid-November. Her agencies, and I'm going to double check this, but her agencies typically have to present a budget for their agency, like the DEC, by November 15th. And then she and her staff assess and go back and forth. And they have basically a final budget by sometime in December, and they release it usually the second week in January. So that's our second concurrent goal, is to get her to include it in the proposed executive budget as an insurance policy if we don't get it passed in special session. So that's where we are. That's a quick update, and I will be in touch with all of you about a Zoom meeting soon on debriefing. And thanks again for your tremendous work.
Thank you so much, Anne. Okay, I'm going to talk about another bill that did not yet pass, the Gas Transition and Affordable Energy Act, which would have helped eliminate some of the conflicts between public service law and the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. Most importantly, the 100-foot rule, which provides a subsidy for new hookups to the gas system, the utility gas system, and the obligation to serve, which requires utilities to provide gas service to anybody that requests it. So this was a hugely important bill. It also would have put into place a really important planning process to start figuring out how we're going to begin paring back and eliminating the utility gas system. And unfortunately, it ran into a lot of the fossil fuel opposition, as you can imagine. And legislators were very scared about doing anything that would be perceived to be raising energy costs, even though this bill would have included a requirement to make sure that energy was affordable for low and moderate income customers by capping their bills at 6% of their income. But unfortunately, this bill never made it out of committee in either the Senate or the Assembly. The good news, there's two pieces of good news. One is that the Public Service Commission, in the final couple weeks of session, issued two major orders. One in their gas planning proceeding, which had basically been stalled for about a year, and their other in their Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act proceeding, which is brand new, that does put into motion some of the planning items that we had in the Gas Transition and Affordable Energy Act. And so we'll be looking at those closely over the next few weeks and providing everyone with an update to see what we can move forward between now and the next session through the Public Service Commission. And the other piece of good news is that we worked with labor, with organized labor, in particular the pipe trades and utility workers unions, to pass the Utility Thermal Energy Network and Jobs Act. And this bill really provides a pathway for labor unions and for workers in the gas space to work on decarbonizing buildings by building thermal energy networks. And I'm going to just explain, because this is a bill that came very, very late in session. So we didn't have an opportunity to do a lot of education about this bill. But what thermal energy networks is, and I'm going to give a nutshell, and then you'll be invited to a webinar very soon where we will have an expert talk a lot more in depth about these networks. But essentially, these networks are pipes that are in the ground. They're filled with water. The water is kept at a constant temperature. And there are heat pumps in people's buildings, and the heat pumps exchange, instead of, with the air or the ground, like air source and ground source heat pumps, the heat pumps in the building exchange thermal energy with the water in the pipes. And the water in the pipes is kept at a constant temperature by exchanging thermal energy with buildings. It allows buildings, some who might be heating and some that might be cooling, to kind of recycle energy and share energy with each other. And then it can also exchange thermal energy with the ground through geothermal boreholes or with bodies of water that keep a constant temperature. And this is a way to bring building decarbonization to a neighborhood scale. And it provides a pathway to workers who currently lay gas pipelines in the streets. They can lay these thermal energy network pipes in the street instead. So we're very excited about this bill. And it's an important first step to being able to do the bigger piece of the Gas Transition and Affordable Energy Act, because it provides some solutions and a pathway for labor and for gas utilities, so that we kind of know where we're going with this transition. They have a pathway in this transition as well. So stay tuned for that webinar soon. And thank you to Betta, who just put in the chat an online teach-in about district systems. I'll also include in the chat a fantastic webinar that was done with labor unions and Jay Egg, an international expert on thermal energy. So y'all can check that out.
Nice.
And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Paul. And Paul is going to talk about some other stuff that we need to do that doesn't involve the legislature, but is very important for implementing our climate law and getting our building decarbonization and electrification agenda passed. So Paul, I will leave it to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, so I'm probably talking about something that a lot of you already know about, so please forgive me if I, repeat a little bit on this first page. But one of the ways that we can really put pressure on the legislature and the governor to pass the All Electric Buildings Act and also the Gas Transition Act is to kind of force them through the CLCPA. And as you know, we passed the CLCPA in 2019, which set some targets. They're laid out here. And kind of the ones I want to focus on is that in the year 2030, we have to get to 70% renewable energy, and by 2040, 100% renewable energy, zero emission electricity. And then by 2050, 85% less greenhouse gas emissions. These targets are codified in law, so they're like legal. If the state doesn't meet those, we potentially could start suing them, and we have measures to kind of force them. But to, in order for them to meet those targets, the CLCPA set up a body called the Climate Action Council. And the Climate Action Council is put out a draft scoping plan, which will become a final scoping plan at the end of the year. And they'll do that again in 5 years. So this draft scoping plan is really important because in it, it includes language which is very similar to the All Electric Building Act and the Gas Transition Act. So we want to obviously save those provisions. We want them to be strengthened. And there's a lot of other issues in the draft scoping plan that we want to have kept sacred and some improved as well. So what we're planning on doing is organizing a comments writing session, because the Climate Action Council is taking comments for the next few weeks throughout the month of June up until July 1st. And so we can influence this Climate Action Council scoping plan and make sure that their final scoping plan includes what we want in it. But there's a lot of fossil fuel disinformation. I can't remember who in the chat highlighted what they got from Bottini. I got similar crap from people up here. And so it's really important that we write comments to support the climate provisions in the draft scoping plan. So if you move to the next page, what we're planning on doing is to have a, oops.
Sorry, Paul, we're gonna invite people to do a comment right now.
Oh,
and then we're gonna hand it back to you to
awesome.
talk about your comment
Awesome.
writing sessions.
Thanks.
Yeah, if everybody wants to take a minute to submit a comment, we need to get as many comments as possible in support of the draft scoping plan that the Climate Action Council put out and make it as ambitious as possible. We know the opposition has been flooding them with comments about why we need to slow down implementation. And so if we can, all just take a minute, visit that link that we just put in the chat and send a comment now. And if you want later to take some more time and really pour through the plan or the cliff notes that my colleague and friend Jed Metzger, who some of you may know, former state senator, current policy advisor to New Yorkers for Clean Power, she created this whole scoping plan guide, which is awesome. And there's a link for that too. And if you wanted to spend some more, time to read through it and pick out kind of key elements on different sectors, that would be great. But right now, if we can all just take a minute submit a comment. Renewable Heat Now has prepared one on our high level goals, which are very consistent with what we've all been working for on the legislative front. So if you could take a minute to do that right now, we would greatly appreciate it. Every comment makes a difference. Okay, I think hopefully people will be finished by now. So thanks so much for taking a minute. I just did, and we can always submit more. But let's get them in and spread the word to your friends and family, and encourage them to participate in one of these great power hours that Climate Reality Project is hosting. I'll pass it back to you, Paul, if you want to talk about that.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, so we have 2 power hours set up, similar to what we've done with the 350 Brooklyn folks, and that we've done with other groups, where you actually spend the hour not talking about things that you should do after the meeting. It's actually doing the things that you need to do in the meeting, and it's great. It's kind of like what we just did. So that will be held this Saturday. No, sorry, next Saturday, not this Saturday. Next Saturday, June 18th in the morning, and then the following Monday. And we'll do what's called, basically organize ourselves in a workshop. And Anshul has created a lot of excellent material that we can use to write really in-depth comments. So not like a kind of a boilerplate comment, but like an in-depth comment that has a lot of backup and scientific and Anshul peer review and so on. And so that's one aspect of the power hours. You'll have these great comments great arguments you can make. Another one is there'll be like technical advice. So if you have questions about how to actually submit those, there'll be someone on the line that can give you technical advice about how to submit them. So, and then the third thing, which is great about this, is it's like a party. Like we get together like this. We won't be having a cocktail at 9:30 in the morning, but we'll have some coffee, and hopefully you'll buy yourself a donut or have something else nice to eat. And we'll all just sit down together and write in-depth comments on the different chapters. Obviously, we'll start with buildings first, but we can go on and either in that power hour or later on, you'll have the tools already to write comments for the other 6 chapters on transportation, electricity generation, and so forth. So I think that's about it. And there is the link in there. I don't know if someone could put that into the chat. That would be awesome, just so that you could sign up, because it does require sign up.
Andra is on it, Paul.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you so much. It's really exciting.
Okay, I think I'm up next. Thank you so much, Paul, for that. And I do encourage everyone to register. The Climate Action Council draft scoping plan has the dates of the All Electric Building Act in there, and that is really helping us ground our campaign for that bill in the actual plan for meeting the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act mandates. So we need everybody's help by July 1st, when the comment deadline is, to make sure that that stays in the final plan and make sure that we can hit those dates. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the summer outreach and organizing that we are planning, and invite you all to join us in this. So we are going to be focusing as Renewable Heat Now as a campaign on getting out into our communities and educating people about building electrification and about heat pumps and about what we need elected officials and our agencies to do to make building decarbonization happen in line with the CLCPA. And so we're forming an outreach working group. We invite anyone on this call to join that group. And that group is going to be putting together materials that people can take out into the public, flyers, tabling materials for farmers markets and concerts and other community events. And we're going to create one big call to action postcard that all of us can be working on getting people to sign throughout the summer. Probably targeted at Governor Hochul, but to be determined by this team, to keep the pressure on. So if you've got ideas for doing that, please sign up to join that team. We'll be convening that team very soon to start working on these materials and a plan for getting materials out to local organizers and activists to get this summer outreach and education happening. Another thing we're going to be doing is helping local communities and activists in local communities work to pass municipal and county resolutions in support of the Climate Action Council draft scoping plan and in support of the Renewable Heat Now agenda. And we have some really exciting things that have already happened. The City of Albany recently passed one of these resolutions just earlier this week. And we have draft resolutions for people to work with. We'll be doing some education and hand-holding and helping of people in local communities that want to help their local elected officials pass these resolutions. So if this is something that interests you, either in terms of helping to organize this as a statewide effort, or if you're interested in helping to get a local resolution passed in your town, city, or council or county, you can join that local resolutions team. And the form for joining both the outreach team and the local resolutions team is in the chat. And then finally, we'll be doing a lot of strategizing, debriefing, and thinking about how to build this campaign bigger and better, and how to continue to work on our agenda over the summer. So please stay tuned for future strategy meetings. And just mentioned one earlier today in the All Electric Building Act. We'll be having strategy meetings throughout the summer and inviting all of you to join. And I will pass it back to Betta.
Great. So next we're going to break out into our regional lobby teams. And if you don't have one, we will make sure that you get connected, but the lobby teams are listed there. And hopefully many of you are already connected and have been working together this past session. Great way to, build with people in your region. And we're going to just do a little debrief kind of huddle on what worked, what maybe we could improve upon for next session, and fill out a spreadsheet together. So we will do that now. And Andra has kindly put in the chat, the queen of links in the chat, Andra, if you are a new person and need to still, get connected to a local group.
So before you go off to your breakout group right now, Andra, could you put the spreadsheet in the chat? There we go. Amber just did it. So there's a Google sheet for everyone to take into the breakouts with. Please work in your breakout, talk amongst yourselves, and fill out this Google sheet, just capturing what went well, what we could improve on, any lessons or insights you want to record while it's fresh in your brain. And we will be using this over the summer as we strategize together and think about how to improve our campaign. Breakouts will be about 10 minutes. And if you need help getting into your breakout room, just put in the chat which region you're in and I will put you in, but hopefully all of you have the breakout room pop-up that just came up and you can choose the breakout room you want to go into by your region. And if you don't see the pop-up down along the bottom of your Zoom, you will probably see a breakout rooms item that you can click on to get the pop-up, or if you don't see it there, hit the more button and you'll see it. But if you're having trouble getting into your room, just type your region into the chat and I will add you.
Okay, wonderful. That was very productive for us, and looking forward to seeing what everybody else learned in their breakout sessions. This was the first time that we had these regional lobby teams in any, seriously orchestrated way. So I'm so excited to see how we keep building this and working together at the local level, and then of course at the statewide level to build our movement. And we made, just so much progress this year. I'm blown away and really appreciate all of the time and energy that everybody spent. This is like an incredible group of humans, and I can't wait to see what we do next together. As I think Jessica said, we're going to be having some strategy sessions coming up, but we don't have a power hour scheduled for next month. I think, it's a time to take a little bit of a breath. We've been going nonstop for the past however long, 6 months at least, and maybe just, pause to marinate on what we've learned and reflect, and then regroup in the very near future to move forward in a productive way. And I know that Anne is also going to be organizing an all-electric bill wrap-up next step, I should say. So we'll keep everybody informed about that. And if, regional groups want to meet, want to get together in person to celebrate and get to know each other better, would of course encourage that. And would be wonderful if one day we could do an in-person meeting or summit or something with Renewable Heat Now at some kind of central location. Would really love to see everybody in person one of these days. But in the meantime, we'll keep meeting like this in Zoom land, and we will send an email tomorrow with all the links. Thanks again, Andra, for providing those. You're the best. And Melissa holding it down on the back end tonight. And everybody for what you've brought to the table here. We've done an incredible amount, and we have a lot more work to do, but we're going to get there. We're going to electrify all our buildings for a healthier, fossil fuel-free New York. So thanks so much. Really appreciate you all, and looking forward to building together very soon. Be well and have a great night.
Thank you, Betta. Great job.